Hello, guys. I just watched a movie. I watched Tron Legacy. There it is. Now, ages ago, I saw the first Tron, which was in 1982. It was fantastic. I love that movie so much. And I know that there's some people who either love Tron or just couldn't get into it. I thought it was cool, but it didn't really strike a chord with them. For me, when I saw the visuals from that old movie, I loved it. It was groundbreaking for the time period, but also offered different kinds of visual to the screen. So if you're somebody who is interested in art or creativity, this kind of world seemed absolutely wondrous and interesting to you. And it did for me. I loved it. The plot for this movie is Kevin Flynn is a leading software engineer formerly employed by a large technology corporation, Encom. He now runs a video game arcade, which is when you mention arcades from the 80s, it's got to be Flynn's, okay? For the old throwback, Kevin attempts to hack into Encom's mainframe system. However, the Master Control Program, MCP, is getting in the way of that and is actually downloads him into the system. Alan Bradley and his girlfriend, engineer Laura Baines, that are investigating and are helping Kevin Flynn along the way. He gets sucked into the computer world, and this computer world is absolutely incredible. Inside of this system, in the mainframe, there are users, and the users have programs that look just like them and are exact copies. Kevin Flynn gets sucked into the mainframe, and he has to go through all of these sort of interesting optical courses, and then he manages to come back to the real world by the end, and of course triumph in the story. He becomes the new CEO of Encom, and it is a fantastic celebration. He's happy. He's got his arcade building, and all is well in the story. This particular film is 7 years later. In 1989, Flynn is talking to his son. What they've done to the actor who is playing Flynn, which is Jeff Bridges, is that they have de-aged him in this scene. Is it the most incredible de-aging software? Well, it was 2010 when this was released, so the answer is definitely no. They did. They tried very well, and I believe that the work that they did on this particular film actually helped a lot of the other films that came afterwards. So it was a starting place for a modern breakthrough in realism when it came to actually modeling human faces or de-aged faces. So it was something that was going on in progress. We still need a little work on, even today, we don't have a perfect de-aging, but it's getting really good. It's getting more and more believable every day. A really cool thing that I love about this scene is the father and son relationship, how close they are. And also, he's telling his son all about his adventures and also talking to him about the grid and talking to him about the mainframe and his adventures therein. It's really great. I did love that, and kind of reminds you of like that first movie and why it was so special. A few days later, Kevin actually disappears and no one can find him, and his son is waiting patiently to find out what happened to his father. 20 years later, in 2019, the son has grown up. His name is Sam Flynn, and he is being played by Garrett Hedlund. At the time, I did not know who Garrett Hedlund was, but I do believe that as I look at his performance throughout the film, I actually think he was a great pick for it. Now, it would have been better, I think, if they did find someone who looked a lot more like Jeff Bridges. I didn't think they looked alike at all. But I did like Garrett's acting. He had a great voice. He definitely had the physical ability for the character. All around, I did enjoy his performance. Sam has become a person who is really like into speeding cars. He'll parachute off of a building. He's into exciting adventures. And right now he is racing to Encom, and income. They are having a meeting, but he sneaks into the building to sabotage the launching of a program that they are releasing into the public. He is actually releasing it into the public for free. I'm sure nobody likes that, but this is his little prank on his own company, basically, because he actually owns most of the shares. I suppose this is his way of releasing some of his angst that he has about his father being gone for so long and the corporate greed of the company. So he's rebelling, and even though it's his company, it's weird. But he downloads this virus in order to make that happen. But the major bad guy in the original movie had a son, Dillinger. He's being played by Cillian Murphy, and it is just a moment in the film, but he's so young here. It's really crazy. So yes, Cillian Murphy is in this movie. I was like, no, that's a guy who looks just like him. It's not Killian. It really was him. Just for this little part. Basically, he is just as smart as Sam is, and he just immediately easily disarms the bug. And that is just showing you that, hey, he's not the only smart guy that knows about technology. But at the same time, there may be a Tron Legacy or a Tron 3, and perhaps this character might be the main focus of that movie. And I'm really excited. I want to know if that's true. That would be interesting. Now, way back in the 80s, we have this character who is being played by Bruce Boxleader, and it is Alan Bradley, who is also playing Tron. So this is him, back in 1982, and then this is him now. Not bad. He still looks good. He is pretty much the surrogate father to Sam at this point. He has been guiding him this whole way and trying to make sure that he still has stake in the company. He scolds him for doing these weird tricks and stuff, but he also tells him, hey, I got a page a few nights ago on my beeper from your dad's office at the arcade. I was like, "Ooh, the arcade is still around." I was really excited. I was like, "Ooh, we're going to see the arcade." And sure enough, for sure we do. But one of the things that Kevin was saying before he disappeared to Sam is that he may have found something very interesting, and he shared this with Alan as well. In the first movie, Clue was just a little ball of light that used to always annoy Kevin. But in this movie, he made Clue an actual program that could think on its own. And he created this particular program in his own image. So he looked just like Kevin. And so Kevin is excited about this. Alan says that it could change the entire society, talking about medicine, religion, philosophy, theology, like everything. There seems to be a high amount of emphasis of this really could change our world, but it needs some more work. And Kevin really needed to get back in there and work on it and build this society in the grid. He said that Alan himself and Clue built a system where everything was open. That was back in 1989. So Alan has been ride or die for Kevin for a long, long time. And he is so very much dedicated to making sure that Kevin's dream comes true. So he really is pushing for Sam to check out that office at the arcade just to make sure that it wasn't his dad reaching out from the grid. And sure enough, Sam ends up going to the arcade. It's the old arcade. It's Flynn's, and it's all shut down at this point. Let me just tell you that the music from the beginning to now is just insanely on fire. It's so good. It's like new wave, and it's absolutely incredible. I cannot impress upon you how the soundtrack is just like chill vibe, and it is beautiful, beautiful, like a sea of digital sounds that are just lovely. A sea of lovely digital sounds. Incredible, incredible. When goes into the arc, and this is the arcade one in the 80s when it was really popping, and just to see it now, it's just it's dead. And so, yeah, it's really sad to see that this is how jumping it was back in 1982. And wow, it really brings back the memories of those socks. Those kinds of socks and those strange and unusual fashions. Now it's all boarded up, has tarp on it, and very much a relic of the past. But as Sam is walking down this aisle of old arcade machines, he's hearing the song Separate Ways. And it's so awesome. It's really, I was like, yes! I was super happy. I was like, oh my goodness, they're playing one of my favorite songs. I like literally hear this song every day, and also just the way it looks like a music video. Well, he gets to the last arcade at the end. It's Tron, but there's something odd about it. He notices that there's a door on it, and as he's going through this door, you can hear the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams playing. You can't actually hear the words totally, but you know the words are there. And it's just very, very dampened. And it just puts you in the mood of like the shadows of the past reaching out to kind of touch you in a certain way, right? Even if it is just the music, it like reaching out for Sam, pressing upon him to like to grab him in some way. So I love that. I love the beauty of that and the fact that the sound is not a bold sound that you can boldly hear the song, but it is subtly in the background and you can hear like muffled like I'm doing a bad version of it, but that's what it sounds like, and it's like, wow, that is so cool. I feel like I'm actually in the space with Sam. He sits down, and we have this atomizer, I suppose is what you would call it, facing him right there. He has no clue it's there. But this is very reminiscent of what happened to his dad ages ago when he was atomized and put into the mainframes. That was pretty cool. So, well, he gets zapped, and it's a very interesting transition, not as fancy as his dad's transition, but he gets like a huge zap, and then he's suddenly in this. It's sort of a replica of the room that he was just in. But there's no like cool stuff in it. And then outside you have a replica of Flynn's, which is really cool. I was like, wow, that is very clever. Very, very clever to have this be the replica of the very same building in the real world where he was transported from. So I thought that was so cool. But this world is very interesting because it's very dark and you have all these neon lights just everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And he's just freaking out. He's like, what's going on? And he doesn't realize until a little bit later that he is in the mainframe. So we have this thing called the recognizer. And I forgot exactly like the recognizer. And I suppose they recognize people. I don't know. But it was also a transport and also a weapon at some point. This recognizer comes and picks up Sam, and there's a whole bunch of other people. But this is what the recognizer used to look like. Major, major upgrades. But I love the fact that they kept the original shape and idea. It was quite ingenious. I loved it. He gets to a room where there are some ladies that just pop out of the wall. I was like, what is going on? There's women popping out of the wall and they're gorgeous. They surround him and remove his items of clothing. And one of them says to the other one, he's different. The reason why he's different is because he's a user. They're used to dealing with stray programs. They are gearing him up for the game is what they call it. And this particular game is called Disc Wars. And we know what this is. We've seen this before. Now, one of the key elements of him being in this world is having an identity disc. And this identity disc is that keeps all of your information on it. He can't lose it because he'll be trapped forever there. So above the arena, in which everyone is screaming and hollering. There's like a huge arena of cheering people, well, cheering programs. And there's a guy up at a viewing area that is just chilling and like watching all of this from his high tower, if you will. Sam is pretty scared. He doesn't know what's going on, but he's handling it very well. Once he's in there, he knows that he's in the grid that his father created. So there is some a semblance of like identity and knowledge about what's going on, which I do adore, is that he knows what's going on. He knows about Tron. He knows about the entire way that this works. There is some new things, of course, for him to figure out, but he doesn't need to be acclimated. It's not a pure fish out of water thing where they're like, okay, what is this place? Why? Oh my God, I'm so scared. No, he takes to this very well. His first battle is won pretty easily. He just has a physical ability to get out of, really tough situations. He's definitely a very, very physical young man who's always been very physical. And so he really wins at this easily. One thing I just do love about this too, not besides the incredible music and interesting visuals, is also creative looks. Like being able to see him through the disc is so impressive. There were so many different transitions and really cool visuals that were, this all has to be storyboarded, and planned out in advance. And I loved all of that. I loved all of that. So beautiful. And the guys that he's going up against are pretty skilled, but he's just doing so many things that are amazing. They have to bring out this guy by the name of Rizzler to face off with him. He's the most incredible fighter, and he does indeed get the upper hand on him. Sam gets wounded, but instead of becoming digital, he starts bleeding. And this is when Rizzler realizes that he's a user. And that comes to the attention of the man in the tower. And so, remember when we had this guy? Very cool. Well, they gave him an upgrade. Yes, now there's a guy in a circular little thing, and he's got glasses. So no need for the no need for all of that. My goodness. So they made it a little bit easier for that program to do what he needs to do. It's very interesting. I love the way all of this is designed, and there's an edge of it that's very sleek and very powerful, but also the lines really give it a strong style. Those glowy lines, we love them. We love them. Clue emerges with his gang, and so this is just another example of how the lines work in the original. It's definitely more realized here, where it's a much stronger visual image. But I do like a lot of the hard work that they put into this image as well. Just loving the differences, but also admiring the work that came before, and also what they were able to do. Now, we finally get a good look at Clue. Clue is the younger version of Kevin that never aged. He's pretty much a young man stuck in the way he was in 1989. As you can see, the CGI looks a little off, but that's not bad. Not bad. We get this moment with Sam, and he's like, Dad? And he's like, I'm not your dad. It's like, oh no. And yeah, so that's pretty sticks him into yet another game, which is in which he is going to be using light cycles. And the light cycles were pretty much the most, I would say, memorable part of the first Tron movie, because you had the light cycle and then you had this trail behind the light cycle. But if you bumped into those trails, you could explode. So you didn't want to bump into somebody else's trails. And so that was pretty cool. Well, now we have a very much updated look at these light cycles, and it is a marvel. It is a complete marvel. They're just gorgeous. And the playing levels that they are driving on, they have different levels on them. It is very visually stunning to watch this. At a couple of times I didn't know quite what was going on. It was maybe going a little too fast, but it was great. I thought what a way to amp up the original idea of light cycle and put it into this world, into this new like playing arena. And also the other thing well, the music was fantastic here. But the other thing that I really loved was the way that they actually got into their light cycle. So being just like, I think there's like two handles. So there was a, there was sort of a stick that they had, and then they broke the stick into different pieces. And then those were the parts that you would use as your handle. All of the other shape of the light cycle will just start forming and right in midair. So you could like be jumping up and do it, and then it'll just like, yeah, it was just great. It's just great. Sorry. At some point I stopped using words to describe that. It's just super, super awesome. I love stuff like that. He was doing very well until Rizzler came back into the scene and sort of bring out Rizzler when you need to get rid of somebody. So, and this is a really good look at Rizzler. I kind of wanted his design a little bit different, but I mean, and we didn't really get to see him a whole lot. He kind of shows up, does what he does, then he leaves. He was sort of like, the mysterious henchman, bad guy, but that was clearly better than Sam. But he always seemed to let them get away. And at this point, I'm not sure if it was on purpose, if he was just not really wanting to hurt a user. There's two times when I was like, hey, he's got them. And it just didn't quite happen. Now, essentially, he is rescued by a young lady during the cycle game. And so this is a really interesting scene because she's checking him out. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're just a program. Yeah. So that's happening. She takes him to his father, which is really cool. He's living on the outskirts of the society that he built outside of the grid. This little location that he created is just incredible. It very stark, but also there are many relics in it as well. It also feels a lot like and looks a lot like a prison, and it feels a lot like a prison. And it's very interesting because when he sees Sam, he doesn't like necessarily jump to go hug him. I think he doesn't believe that it's really Sam. Then he's like, wait a minute, you got here because of a pager? I did not send that page. So Clue was the one who sent the page. And also, they show us a little chessboard. At some point, the characters are playing chess, but actually, it's Clue who's the one that's playing chess because he desperately wants Kevin. He wants his identity disc so he can go into the real world and infect the real world with his perfection, if you will. So, yeah, they finally figure out. I wasn't so crazy about the dialogue here, but they finally got the two together. So we had some really good emotional stuff here. Him hugging his son, for crying out loud, yeah, and realizing like, hey, this is real. This is real. But he's a different man now. He's a different man now. As they're trying to acclimate Sam into this world and figure to help him to figure out what's going on. And as you can see, this I just love this because what she's wearing is very much Matrixy in a way, right? It's very Matrix inspired, but also has classic Tron bright lights and lines going through the outfit. I did love it. Those boots, though, I desperately want those boots. This scene in particular really reminds me of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the character was pretty much in a jail cell or a lab, an alien lab, if you will. He's a prisoner here. And all of the stuff here is just gorgeous and beautiful, but they are almost like relics in a modern world. And he also has a library, which I thought was really cool. And it's almost as if he was really striving to hold on to his humanity as much as possible. He needed a little bit of, to feel like he was a human being. And you can lose your identity sometimes. And that is definitely, if it felt like that was what he was striving for, more humanity. So the girl is, her name is Cora, and she is played by Olivia Wilde. There's some sort of like chemistry between her and Sam, but not necessarily. It's not like passion or anything like that. It's there's just something there. She gives him the information to go to the place back on the grid. Sam leaves to go on that mission, but Kevin realizes that he has to go with him. As you can see, he also too has an identity disc, and his identity disc is the one that Clue wants. Clue wants that disc, so yeah, it's I love this because that we know what these characters want, and we know why Kevin is still stuck on this plane. He is trying to protect the planet from Clue. What Clue could do if he goes out into the real world. It can cause a lot of problems. And so this is why he sacrificed all those years away from his son Sam. It's a beautiful moment that you realize, oh wow, yeah, he's not a bad dad. He's just a person who made a sacrifice for his family, for his son, and for the world really, to keep everyone safe. I think this was sort of like his son going back to the city forced him to face his own fear. And he's like, okay, well, we're going after him to rescue him because he's not going to make it. When Sam goes to the city, he sees this lady again. This is one of the robots that initiated him into the games. Her name is Jem. She's really pretty. And she takes him to somebody by the name of Zeus, but they have to go through another guy first. His name is Castor, and he is the club owner of this like incredible nightclub. That's see, I wanted to hang out here a little bit longer because there were some really cool programs that had scars on their face. I think one guy was like part of like some sort of resistance. It was really cool. I like I said, I wanted to just hang out here a little bit longer and learn about these characters. The thing about Castor is that he is sort of a mix between David Bowie and Tim Curry, and just like really out there, full of fun. But in this particular case, he is a dangerous fellow. However, he does everything with a little pizzazz. At this nightclub, we do have Daft Punk there. They're doing the music for this. Like I said, it's incredible. It's like eating delicious ice cream. It's like it's like swirling your spoon into some hot chocolate. It's wonderful, and it's very soothing. And even though these are, you can easily get up and start dancing kind of music. It is very pleasant. I mean, it is soothing and amazing. I just love it. It was great to see these guys. They were at what 2010. They were huge. Like people were going crazy, just like, oh my God, these guys are in the movie. It was great. It was great. After some shenanigans and finding out that Castor is really Zeus. Oh, were you surprised? Yeah, it is just one of those things where you could have been surprised, but then you're like, wait a minute, we went to this place to find the person, but it was really him all along. That sounds about right. Now, this is sort of our retro look at what the original movie did with regular programs that were just hanging around. And so I thought this was very interesting that they had painted the world like this. And this new movie is all dark with just a few light streaks here and there to denote the style and the architecture. So it all really comes to a head where they're about to do something bad to Sam, and then Cora shows up and Kevin shows up. When Kevin arrives, all of the programs in the nightclub, they start bowing to him. It's really kind of freaky but interesting. I wanted to know more about that too. Then suddenly we've got a whole bunch of bad guys show up at the club, and Rizzler is there, and they get Cora really good to the point that she loses an arm. When she loses an arm, she kind of goes into a catatonic state. So it was very interesting. That was I wanted to learn more about that. One thing about this movie is that there were so many interesting aspects that I wanted to know more about these things. Like, I want to know more about this. I want to know more about that. So they escape, but Clue is not happy with all of this. But during the scuffle, Zeus was able to get Kevin's identity disc, and that's exactly what Clue has been looking for. And so, yes, I don't understand why Clue, though, in response, decides to destroy this nightclub. And one of the theories I have is, as we learn more about Clue, is that he hates imperfection. So that's one of the things. He hates imperfection. So maybe he sees Zeus and all of these people in the nightclub as imperfections in the design of programs. So perhaps perhaps that was true. Perhaps that was true. Sam grabs Cora and they try to fix her, but it turns out they find out that she is something special. She's not a program exactly. She's an ISO. ISOs are organic to the grid. They were just born from the grid. They weren't created programs. And so that's actually fascinating to Kevin. Kevin is like, oh, wow, this is new life. This is a new kind of life that are coming organically digital, which is really kind of an interesting concept. And he actually has a chance to have a nice heart to heart with his son. It was really great. It took a while to get here, but we finally got to the point where he was able to say that he would take in all of this stuff away if it could just spend more time with his son. And that was what we needed to hear. And I think it meant a lot to Sam. And then this is great writing. Was it done perfectly? I'm not sure if the timing was completely awesome, but it was great to hear it at this point. And so, yes, the ISOs were born of the system of the grid. Somehow they existed. When Clue found out about the ISOs, he had them all destroyed. He committed sort of a genocide, if you will. It was awful. There is only one left. Cora is the last one left. So this makes her pretty special. Again, this little relationship between them, they never have them like kiss or anything like that. There's something going on between the two. Somebody said that it was brother and sister. Cora is a surrogate child for Kevin, and I don't think so. I think it was romantic, but it was much, much more subtle. And all of the ISOs have this marking, so I thought that was really cool. So right now they've determined that they have to go home. They have to go back to the real world. But in that effort, Cora decides to get herself out of the equation by giving herself up to the bad guys. Clue sees her stamp. I thought he was going to flip out. He actually kind of covers it up. I was like, oh, he doesn't want anybody to know. So I was kind of confused by that one. The master plan for Clue, right? He wants to get to the real world, but he's building this army. See, what he's been doing is that he's been collecting all of the ISOs and he's been collecting all of the programs. He's transforming them into his own army. They're drones, basically. They are the perfect example of a soldier. They're the perfect drone, and they all follow him without a question. This kind of reminds me of the movie Gandahar that I reviewed not so long ago, maybe about a year ago. There were robots that were exactly like that. They were completely obedient to their creator, and it just kind of reminded me the way they had these soldiers march. I was like, well, this is reminding me of Vikandahar. It was really great. And he's giving this impassioned speech to his followers. And you would think he was running for president or something. He's very much wanting the glory of people cheering for him. That's why the arena is full of people cheering. We have this henchman here that has been with Clue since the very beginning. And I'm not sure if they needed him necessarily because they didn't do anything with this character except for the fact that he looks really cool. He looks very cool. But I wanted a little bit something juicier from this character. He just was set up as fodder to die. Rest in peace, Jarvis. Oh, and by the way, Jarvis is being played by James Frayne. He looks so different in this, and it's the makeup and everything. Very good job. And we have a wonderful sky battle after this that's really, really impressive. The vehicles for this franchise is just incredible. This plane is just, this is actually Tron in this particular vehicle. And it's really cool because they're like they're falling, and then all of a sudden the ship kind of bills around them. It's really cool. And then they start flying. It's just incredible transitions. It's just wonderful. Compared to the first movie, definitely we've come a long way. We've come a long way, guys. We get this really interesting revelation that Rizzler is actually Tron. We're like, what? Yes, we needed more time with this. Good old Tron, who we used to remember so very well, ended up being one of the main bad guys. You know, he was basically playing the henchman the whole time, which was really sad. I definitely wanted more from that character. They teased that he may have been killed in the past, but maybe they didn't really fully give him a proper ending. And I still feel a little bit jilted about the character and what they ended up doing with him. Yeah, another one, R.I.P. Tron or Rizzler. But I'm sorry, but Tron himself like deserves a proper, memorial. But also too, the movie's called Tron, right? So you would think that there would be more emphasis on Tron, and there isn't, and that's the part that's kind of upsetting in a way because you're like, oh, I want more Tron. That's what we're here for. And we look. I love Kevin and Sam, but I did want a little bit more Tron, if you will. If you will, I would love a little bit more Tron. And they get to the recognizer. They're about to go home, but unfortunately, Clue shows up, and he's got an axe to grind with Papa. Papa, in many ways, he is the son. Is a son to his father, his creator, Kevin, and there is a great deal of anger, animosity against his father. When he found the exos, he got excited about it and kind of forgot about Clue. And he was not able to impress upon Clue the value of things not being perfect. And he apologized. He said, "Hey, I'm sorry for making you the way you are because I had not matured myself by that time." It was just sort of sad, but also a little too late. Sadly, Papa Kevin doesn't make it out. He does some sort of strange matrix move where he kind of absorbs. He absorbs glue and then he explodes. The 3D face de-aging almost worked until it doesn't, right? It's like it almost works, and then sometimes it just doesn't have the right emotion, or it's trying to show you an emotion and it just doesn't get the right proportions. It's just there's something a little off. Uncanny Valley. Sam and Cora managed to make it back to the real world. One of the first things they're doing is he's taking her on a ride on his bicycle, and she sees for the first time the first sunrise, and it's just beautiful. And that's how I feel every time I see a sunrise too. I'm like, wow, this is gorgeous. Definitely a wonderful and a beautiful thing to experience as a human being, to see a wonderful, fresh, gorgeous sunrise. Ah, perfect. Now, I want to just talk about the movie itself. Like, again, we talked about the CGI. There were some moments where it was really impressive. Like this particular one is pretty good. There's still a little bit of uncanny stuff going on, but man, what an incredible effort. What an incredible effort. And they tried to do some, motion captioning there. I think they did pretty good. I mean, he looks pretty good. I mean, he's in great shape. So, and at some points, they had someone stand in for Jeff Bridges, and played opposite Sam, and it was really kind of interesting. The height is a little off too, right? So here's a side by side of somebody on the internet decided they wanted to do some de-aging in their spare time, and they managed to do that. And it looks great. But of course, we have the luxury of time and the brilliance of technology of today. So we can do a lot more today than we could do in 2010, obviously. And we should always consider that when we're looking at older films, that we're not just we're looking at the best that they could do at the time, and that all of the other things that they were doing that works for this movie. Oh, absolutely bravo. Absolutely bravo. So, this is just to give you an example of what can be done now versus what they did back then. This picture is a couple of years old, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even 5 years old, up to 5 years old. I'm not sure. Um, and my ultimate um, determination on Tron Legacy. I enjoyed the music in particular. It is wonderful. The soundtrack is so good. Definitely something I'm going to be seeking out to actually get a hold of and have that myself. I definitely want that soundtrack. The acting's all great. I think the casting was fantastic. There were a lot of nice, subtle surprises with characters and character development. I wish we had more time with these characters. I also wish that there was more. We got more on the ISOs. Like, tell me more about those guys. They seem interesting, and it's almost like somebody said, "Oh, we're out of time." We're out of time. We can't do anymore. So yes, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for Tron 3 to come out. I heard that it is in production, and we'll be getting it soon. So I'm excited. Yep, that's it, guys. Yes, that was just wonderful. I love, 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 love watching new movies that I had never seen before. If I could give this a score, I would give this an 8.5. Yes, I think so. 8.5 would be my score for this movie. It's actually, if this movie neglected to have that scene with Kevin talking to his son about what happened and actually put some closure to that, my goodness, this would be a hot mess. It would be, because it's like the last little thing that you need, that icing on the cake, if you don't have that emotional pull. So your heart's broken when you see that he doesn't get to leave with them. So that was so important. That was so important, and they nailed it. And a lot of times, a lot of writers don't understand that kind of emotional closure needs to happen, and that you need that in order to feel that last little bit of sting at the end. Yeah, so I mean, it breaks your heart when you know that, like, you realize, oh, he's sacrificing himself again. He's sacrificing himself again. Oh, poor Kevin. He was such a fun-loving person in the first movie, cracked, all kinds of jokes, and was, you know, very, very adventurous. And it's kind of sad that he ended up being sort of trapped by his own invention. And that is sort of the moral, I suppose, of the story, is in the search of creating this perfect world, and these grand ideas about, like, helping humanity. He didn't realize that he was also creating something that was very dangerous, and could really hurt humanity. And ultimately he made the right decision or a decision in which he felt compelled to make that decision to save, the rest of the world from his own invention. It was Yes. Yes, see, I like that. I love that. I love that. The characters, and they gotta get that you gotta nail the characters or it's just, a wash. Now, I did enjoy Cora, the character. I thought she was really cool, but I'm not sure there was something maybe a little missing from her, as maybe I'm not even sure if they could spend more time with her, if that would have mattered. And I do love the fact that this was a story about a father and a son and their relationship, the loss of and the grief that they had to go through, and how they found each other again. That's very, very powerful. There's also a story of redemption and sacrifice. Oh, so good, so good. My last thing definitely is about Clue, and I thought he was a wonderful villain. I like my bad guys, and I like them to be very bad if they're going to be bad. But in many ways, he did lose a father too. The fact that his father created him specifically to be perfect. And he had a plan. He was executing his plan, and his father disapproved, and his father chose the ISOs over him. Like what? That's very painful. In many ways, him becoming a brutal enemy, a brutal villain, is definitely at the cause of his father. And the guilt of creating Clue was something that Kevin, uh, I mean, it was literally eating him up. And when he finally did decide to, like, okay, I will face this head on, because he thought he was going to do that one thing that Cora mentioned before, which was uh, he thought that he was going to take himself out of the equation. Sometimes you can't take yourself out of the equation. Sometimes you have to speak up, or you have to interact. You have to deal with the problems, especially if you've created them. So finally, after 20 years, he finally deals with his own problem. Yeah, I like it. This is the more and more I think about it, the more I'm enjoying this movie. And maybe we'll say like a 8.7 now. It's at an 8.7. I see it one more time, it might be a 9.2. We'll see. We'll see. Now, did you see this movie and what are your thoughts? And if you haven't seen this movie, let me know. Is this something that you might want to see? Are you like happy with the first one, or maybe you didn't like the first one? Tell me all of your thoughts in the comments. YouTube is going to recommend a video after this, and so if you could watch that video, that would be awesome because it would be helping the channel. Anything you do to help really would be appreciated. Without further ado, I bid you adieu, and I will see you in the next one of these.